investigate the Deepwater Horizon disaster. On May 22nd, the White House did exactly that. Next, Cap called for a single point person for the spill response. Soon after, Coast Guard Admiral Thad Allen got the job. On May 26th, Cap's Dan Weiss called in the White House to demand BP set up an escrow account to pay victims. Sound familiar? Well, it's because suddenly the White House is pushing for a $20 billion fund or something to that extent. So what is next? Well, Cap is a big proponent of cap and trade. Could the president use his platform tomorrow to push that agenda in the speech? Let's ask former Clinton advisor and author of 2010 Take Back America, a Battle Plan, the 9th bestseller for this guy and his wife, Eileen. Dick Morris. Good to see you again,
Good to be here.
So is the president taking his cues from this group?
Yeah, I think very likely. You said it best right before we went on the air. You quoted Rahm Emanuel, never let a good crisis go to waste.
That's what it is.
This is his chance to push that agenda. What I find fascinating about this, David, is that he's the chief executive, and yet we see him as a legislator recommending legislation on oil and environment. We see him as a lawyer suing BP in a criminal investigation. We see him as a populist orator condemning BP. Mm-hmm. We see him as an advocate attacking big oil. And what we don't see is an executive who is running the government response.
Instead, he's been following it. Instead of getting ahead of the crisis, he's still trailing the crisis. Can he ever get ahead of it?
And he's still trying to address it as a legislator, a lawyer, or an advocate, right, not as an executive.
As a chaser. Let's use the phrase. Ambulance chaser.
Ambulance chaser.
I mean, that's what he was raised to be as a lawyer.
When I worked for Clinton, I came to a realization that the federal government is not run by the president. It's run by Newton's second law of motion. A body in motion tends to remain in motion at the same speed in the same direction unless acted on by an outside force. And the president is the outside force. He can intervene and change the direction. But if he doesn't, it just runs itself.
So how does he get in front of it? How does he start pulling this instead of chasing it?
Let's first realize how he fell behind it. The bureaucracy told him, we don't need anything more. BP said, we have enough. The Coast Guard said, we're just going to let BP run this stuff. And instead of asking the tough questions, he waited a month, 5 weeks, before he asked for any foreign assistance. Then the Coast Guard said, we'll take the foreign assistance that meets our specifications. He didn't ask what they meant. What they meant by that was the Jones Law, that makes it illegal to use a boat that's not manned by an American.
As we mentioned last week, just 3 days after the initial fire that led to the spill, we got offers from countries. They came to us, and we said thanks, but no thanks.
And the president never asked the question that waiving this law, which made no sense at all, was what he had to do. So his whole response here has been to be as a legislator and an advocate. And I don't think he's going to get ahead of the game. I think what he's going to do is to try to load shed. He's going to say, my job is to fight BP, prevent this in the future, move away from oil dependency, not to plug the hole in the body of the ocean.
Chasing the story.
And I think
continues to chase the story.
And I think he's just wrong about that. I think that he doesn't understand how to get ahead of it. He doesn't know how to ask questions.
How should he?
Well, he should meet with the bureaucracy and understand the steps that are needed. We're now getting an understanding of the aid that he's turned down. There was an effort to build a bream to keep the oil off the coast of Louisiana. BP offered to pay for it, $360 million. But it was a Dutch firm that was going to dig the bream. And the U.S. dredgers objected, even though they didn't have more than 20% of the capacity to do that.
Killing him.
And it stopped him.
Politically, all this is
He stopped because of that.
And it's all coming out that if he uses tomorrow to push cap and trade, rather than focusing on how to clean up the bill, what will the political reaction be?
People will see that he doesn't know what he's doing.
Opportunist.
Yeah, and the point is tomorrow it will spill, and the next day it'll spill. It'll be like one of Bush's speeches on Iraq. At the beginning it bounced him up a few points, and then the body count continued. Then at the end it didn't even bounce him, the body count just continued.
And every day this thing is going to...
And here the body count is measured in barrels.
Dick Morris, thank you very much, Dick. Good to see you.